Before you create a product or jump into a market, you need to know your buyers very well. Because the worst case scenario is you can create a product without knowing your market, jump in, and wonder why it doesn't sell. So we want to prevent that situation from happening and help you understand how to do proper market research, competition research, so you know exactly who your competitors are, and how to do product research so you create the best quality product that your buyer wants to buy that will solve their problems. So let's get started. So the question is, how well do you know your market? Even though there are plenty of sources and resources that you can go online for information in this respect, it's a fact of life that many products are released with little to no prior research at all. If that sounds like you and you really want to jump in without really knowing your market, you need to stop right now. And I'm going to help you right now figure out how to research. Now, before we jump right in and talk about how to find your right market, I'm going to talk about a quick overview here on the videos in this specific video series. So, of course, this is video number 1, which is the introduction to market research. And of course, video number 2 is going to be, what is your product? You want to get a clear idea about what your product or service is about and what your customer sees in your product and service. Why would they buy it? And things like that. If you have a better idea of what you're about to sell in terms of your product, then it will be easier to do market research, because that way, when you're doing the market research, you have a better idea of, oh, okay, this can be applied to my product, and you can see how to improve your product. But not only that, you can see how to better reach your potential buyers. Because if you go into market research blindly, it's a little bit harder to do that. Video number 3 is going to be different types of markets. Now, it's easy to stick with one particular market, for example, specific location and things like that. But I want to open your eyes so that you are aware of the many different types of markets that are out there, so that you can expand your reach, thereby expanding your profits. And then we move on to video number 4 and talk about some general market data mining sites. These are quite general, but they give you a good idea of the trends that are going on in the broader market, so that you're aware of how to improve your product or service. And that brings us to video number 5, which is starting your research. So at this point and on, I will actually show you the step-by-step process of what you need to do to actually begin your market research. So I'll actually give you an example of a specific market, and we'll dive on in. And from that point on, all the way to video number 10, I will use that same example. In video number 6, we're going to talk about finding market trends to figure out what kind of trends are going on in that specific market. What is going on, what trends are going away, and things like that. And that brings us to video number 7, which is researching keywords and checking the stats. Now, keyword research is a little bit more detailed than market research. So market research is more broader, and then you have little niches inside that market. But keyword research, I'm including this in this course because I want it to take you from the broader market to the specific niches, the specific keywords, and that way you can get some hard data and get an idea of what's working and what's not. And that brings us to video number 8, which is what is selling and what isn't. It's a good idea to take a look at your competitors and competing products to see what is selling and what isn't. And that brings us to video number 9, which is, of course, what people want and what people don't want. It's a good idea to figure out this, because this will help you improve your product further and help your product stand out among the competition. Because if you have a good idea of what people don't want, then you can not include that. But if you can figure out what people want, and maybe your competitors don't have that specific thing, then that could potentially improve your product if you have whatever they want. So if, as you can see here, we're pretty much going from the broader market research to competitor research down deep into product research, because I want you to be able to not only examine and find markets, but also utilize that information to actually apply it and succeed. And that brings us to video number 10, which is finding the chatter. So once we figure out what people don't want and what they want, we want to figure out what people are talking about. What are people talking about in application to the trends, in application to what they don't want, what they want, and everything like that. So finding the chatter through social media, forums, and other things like that is definitely important to understanding more about your customers. So at this point, we're going from market research, product research, all the way down to understanding the consumer. So by the end of this video course, my goal is to get you to really understand not just how to find a market, but really understand your consumer and your potential customer really, really well, so that you have a product that will convert into sales. So with that said, let's jump right in and go to video number 2 and get a good idea of what your product and service is all about. Because I know it's easy to think about it, but have you really thought about it? So let's move on. So everybody has great ideas, but whether or not somebody will buy your idea is key. Now, if you think about it, every day someone thinks, wow, this idea is going to make me millions. Yet they've put all their eggs into the basket, or in other words, thought about making millions or thousands before actually knowing if there is a buying market who wants to actually buy the product. So most of the time, it isn't clear to consumers exactly what it is that you might be offering, product-wise or service-wise, unless you have a clear message as to how it will benefit them. So the whole point of this video is to help you understand and better understand what you are selling. So this also goes into other factors such as the value of the product and the service that your customer will experience, and this definitely will weigh into the buying decision as well. So to make it super clear, I want you to do this quick exercise to get you into the right mindset. So we want to ask you a few questions so that you can start brainstorming and get into the right mindset. So do this quick exercise here. Feel free to pause this video at any time. I'd recommend maybe pulling out a pen or paper and just start jotting stuff down. So the first question is, what is it that you actually do if your product is a service? Or what does your product do, whether it's a physical product or an intangible digital product? What kinds of problems do your customers face that would make them want to buy your product as a solution? Or what kinds of problems that they face whereas they would want to buy your service? And what are the reasons why your product stands out among other products? In other words, what is your USP or unique selling proposition? What helps you stand out versus all your competitors? And what are the main benefits that stand out to your customers in relation to your product or your service? And what are other niches within your market that you could expand into? Now, what I'm going to do in the next videos is basically to open your eyes into the other potential markets that you can move into, and using some data mining research to get an idea of where the market is heading and how you can ensure that your product is compatible to expanding due to technology and things like that. So let's talk about different types of markets so that you're aware of what's out there and how you can expand into these markets. So the first thing is foreign markets. So the last thing that possibly passed your mind is foreign markets, but most businesses tend to forget about foreign markets. And I'm not just talking about language here. I'm talking about countries. Whether it be a different country or a different language, they tend to be massive markets and far less expensive in terms of marketing. For example, a lot of people tend to have an English product, and some people will come along and translate the product into, say, for example, Spanish to reach the Spanish market, or into French, and vice versa. And there are many, many different potential markets out there. So you could easily get things translated, especially if you have some sort of intangible or digital product. Now, it's obviously going to be easier to sell things if you have a digital or intangible product, such as an ebook or video, and that could be easily translated into a different language versus a actual physical product. But I want you to begin thinking of how you can possibly expand into those markets, because the barrier to entry is often easier. So many countries besides the US of A are surpassing in technological and financial capabilities, making it easier for you to actually reach them. And in terms of marketing, there tends to be less competition in specific places because most people don't think about it nor really know how to do so. And that brings us to cultures. Cultures, or the way of life, can actually impact the way somebody buys. And this also brings us to the way of life in terms of where somebody lives, such as urban city life versus rural life. So, for example, the way of life can impact the mindset of your potential buyers. For example, someone who lives and works in a big city may not care about the same things that another person in a smaller rural area cares about. So, for example, maybe your product relates more to somebody who is in the urban city life, or maybe some sort of product that you have relates more to the rural life. So if you have that in mind, then you could reach a specific location, but you know, okay, this is going to sell more to this specific person with this specific mindset. So these are definitely potential markets that you might be missing out on. So it might be good to look past just the specific locations, and past that, once you've built on that, once you're doing well, then maybe you can move on to other markets as well. And in terms of marketing, it'll be a lot easier, especially, for example, ranking on Google. Something that might be very competitive in the United States or in the UK or wherever you are, it might be very, very competitive, but maybe you can translate that into Spanish or into France or something else that may not be as competitive. So doing so, you obviously, if you don't know the language, you'll need to find somebody to translate it and maybe find somebody to market it and things like that. But these are all great things just to think about and how you can expand into those markets. But obviously, you definitely want to tackle the initial market first before you move on and expand into other markets. But definitely want to keep this in mind for future reference. So what I want to do in this specific video is just to give you a quick overview of different sites that you can use to get information on where different markets are heading in terms of technology, because this will give you an idea of how you can possibly improve your product. The first site is called ComScore Data Mine, and data mining sites allow you to get some statistics, kind of like Google Keywords giving you statistics of keywords. But in this case, you can go here and you can see, for example, the French internet users. Let's say, for example, you want to go into the French internet user market. You can click on this and get some statistics on different websites and news sites and how they're doing. Obviously, not everything is going to apply to your specific market, but it's just really good data that you can get access to. This is Google Sites has the most engaged audience. You can learn a lot of stuff just by visiting and looking at and reading these articles. So I like to go here and just get some information about different statistics that might be applicable to my market. Another site is called Nielsen.com, and you can get a lot of other statistics like media and entertainment online in terms of advertising, social media, just the way people view things, and what technologies are doing really well. Like, for example, what are potential technologies that maybe I need to make sure that my product is compatible to, and things like that. And another site is called MMAglobal.com. This is a great place so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and especially if you're trying to market, you can find a lot of cool information on, for example, this right here says marketers currently allocate less than 1% of their marketing budget to mobile advertising, but there's an increase on average to about 7%. So you can see where the market is moving towards, and to ensure, for example, that your website is mobile friendly and things like that. So if you have an idea of where your market is heading towards, then you can plan ahead. Another site that I like to use is called internetworldstats.com. Now, the reason why is because you can get a lot of information about countries and so forth. And if you want to know, for example, how can you connect to other countries, then this is a great site to get this information. So, for example, Africa, this population here, this many internet users, and internet users' latest data, how fast it's growing, and you can also dig deeper as well. So you can actually see areas within Africa, just check your statistics to say, okay, let's say, for example, Algeria, we have in the foreign market, we want to reach that market, but we have an idea of how many internet users there are and how fast it's growing, because you obviously don't want to go into an area that doesn't have a lot of internet users. So, for example, we find maybe this rural area doesn't fit with our product and doesn't really have a lot of people. So this is a great site to get some information about, just to double check the way that you're heading is the right way if you go into foreign markets and so forth. So all these are great sites just to take a look at, get some information, statistics that verify that you are headed in the right direction. Now, obviously, this will apply to some of you, and obviously it won't apply to some of you, but I wanted to make sure that I included all this information as much as possible to help you out and gear you towards the right direction. So the first website is called Alexa.com. So if you go to Alexa.com, it's known as the web information company, and it has a lot of statistics about tons and tons of websites around the world. So let's say, for example, that you want to do research on a specific niche, let's say low cholesterol cooking. And you're interested in this niche, you don't really know necessarily what product you want to create, or let's say you do want to know you want to create a recipe or release a recipe, but you want to do some research beforehand before you get into that market. So what you can do is simply enter the keyword that you're interested in and click enter. And Alexa.com will show you exactly what sites are getting the most traffic in that niche, so possible competition. The lower the rank, the higher amount of traffic that the site is getting. And beneath each site, you will notice that there are keywords. So this will give you some more options in terms of other little sub niches within the general niche that you're looking for. So let's take, for example, low calorie meals. If we click on this keyword, this will tell you exactly the competition, the engagement, and everything like that. So let me explain a little more detail what this means. So it'll give you the top sites for that specific keyword. It will tell you the share of voice, which are basically the percentage of all searches for low calorie meals that lead to this specific given site. Engagement basically tells you how long a person stays on the website. So if you want to know how loyal and how high of a stick rate these buyers could potentially have, this would be a good measure, not necessarily the only measure, but it would be one of the good variables and variations of measurements that you can use to measure the engagement and interaction that a buyer in the specific niche has with a particular site. So if it's about the same across the board on all these different sites, that's a good measure of the engagement. Now, Alexa also tells you the competition for that specific keyword. It'll tell you if it's low, if it's high, and things like that. So as you can see, low calorie meals seems like the competition is low, which is great. Now, keep in mind that just because there's low competition, it doesn't always mean that the market is something that you want to go into. You always want to make sure that you go into a market that has competition, because that means that there is a buying market. If you go into a market that doesn't have any competition whatsoever, you happen to be the only person in that market, then the problem with that is that you're going to have to educate the market because they're not aware of that product. There really isn't necessarily a lot of people buying in it, so it's going to be harder for you to sell. So that's just something to think about when you do your research. Now, if you want to dig deeper into a site itself, let's say, for example, Delish.com, because as you can see, Food Network is a fairly big site. We can take a look at Delish, which is about 4% share of voice. If we take a look at the specific site, it will actually tell you between the certain years how much certain amount of traffic it could be getting from the search engines. So as you can see, it seems to be increasing in terms of the amount of visitors. It's up 15%. You can see the specific keywords that people are typing in to get to the site. So this is great, especially if you're trying to dig deeper into competition, understanding the competition, and where they are ranked. What sites are related to the specific site, so you can get more competition. and where do visitors go on this specific site. So which specific areas of the site are in high demand. So this will allow you to really dig deeper and really understand also your demographics as well. So you can see here who visits Dallas.com, so you can understand your demographics, the education level, the browsing location, and the country location. So let's say, for example, you know that the majority of people are within the United States, within a specific area of the United States or Canada or whatever. And then you can pinpoint specifically to that location. So you can get all the way and dig deep into that specific location. So this is really good information to know for especially future marketing as well. So I'd highly advise you to go to Alexa.com and just take a look around and get an idea of some market research and competition research. Now, if you want to dig deeper, let's say, for example, into a specific competitor, then you can go to a site called compete.com. And at the front page here, you'll notice that you can enter a URL, for example, Dallas.com, and do a search. And you can start a free trial to get more information on, audience, age, income, gender, and more demographics basically on your competitors. But as you can see here, you can see a graph of the amount of different visitors that are coming. You can see a decrease, possibly maybe if it's seasonal. If the product is seasonal, then you maybe want to market on a certain time and things like that. So this is good information to know. And you can see the unique visitors, the rank, the competitive rank against all the other websites, and you can find out more information by clicking start your free trial if you want more information and detailed reports about your competitors. So that's another great site to use to dig deeper. And as you can see, just on the free level, you get some basic information. Now, the next site I want to talk about is Google Trends, and you can find it by going to google.com/trends. Now, Google Trends allows you to see basically the trends of a buyer market. You can see which keywords are rising so that you can look into exactly which keywords you want to rank on. So if you go to the site and you type in a specific keyword term, let's say we'll stick with the low cholesterol diet, and you can actually see the interest over time. So as I can see here, it's actually decreasing. And that's specifically what I want to know. I want to know if a trend is decreasing, is it really worth getting into that market? Now, Google Trends is great for this because it tells you exactly the forecast as well. So if I click on forecast, you can see what its forecast is going to be. So they forecast it to go, it looks like it's just decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't a specific buying market in it. Maybe you need to switch the keyword term. So if we look down deeper, we can actually see the regional interest. The regional interest shows that the majority of people are in the United States, then South Africa, then Ireland, Australia, and so forth. And I like particularly the related searches because this gives me the exact keyword phrase that might be rising. So a specific keyword phrase that I'm thinking of might be decreasing, but you might be able to find a keyword term that is rising. So it tells us that, okay, well, low cholesterol diets may be decreasing, but high cholesterol foods, cholesterol diet plan, low cholesterol recipes are actually increasing. So even though we have found that a specific general keyword term is decreasing, doesn't always mean that it's decreasing. So Google Trends actually tells you what is increasing. So we can actually look further into cholesterol diet plans. So if you click on this here, this will give you more keywords that are related to cholesterol diet plans. So as you can see, it changes here, and we can see that in 2007 it wasn't as good, but it's increasing over time. So there are some dips, but there are some increases. So as we can see in the long term, at least this keyword, for example, would be increasing. So the keywords that are in our heads are not always proven to be increasing or decreasing. So that's why you really have to get down to the research itself so that you can see what is real and what is not. Now, one thing I like about Google Trends is that if you really want to dig deeper into a specific city that might be searching for the specific keyword, that way it gives you a better idea of who, when you can market to, and who to target, basically. So if you go under regional interest, as you can see here, and I click specifically United States, you can see that the search volume seems to be really high in Georgia, and then Florida, Texas, New York, and California. So maybe I want to dig deeper and click on Georgia. Sometimes it'll show you results, sometimes it won't. But as you can see, it's deep into a city, and it tells me exactly which city has the most searches. So I could do a press release in that city or something like that. It gives me a better view of the long term in terms of marketing. The next tool is called the Google Keyword Planner. The Google Keyword tool, as of now, is no longer available. It is now called the Google Keyword Planner. And it will require you to log in to your Gmail account. So if you don't have a Gmail account or a Google account, you'll need to create one. But if you have a Gmail account, it will work pretty much for Google services. Now, as you can see here, the Google Keyword Planner gives you a ton of data, and you can do a search for new keywords and ad group ideas. So it'll basically give you some ideas of keyword phrases, how much competition each keyword phrase is getting, and also the ad group keywords that a lot of people tend to use. So if we click on search for new keyword and ad group ideas, you can enter your product or service or the keyword. So let's say we're going to stick with low cholesterol diet plan. And you can enter your landing page, you can select your product category. If you want to hone in on a specific category, you can do that. Let's say, for example, we're going to focus on health. And you can also specify targeting United States, English, Google, and negative keywords. So we know that from the Google Trends research that the United States is getting the most hits for that specific keyword. So that would be some good information to use for targeting. You can also do some keyword filters and keyword options. In this case, we're going to just click on Get Ideas, and we'll see what Google has to show us. So you can see ad group ideas, which are groups of keywords that relate to one another, or you can get individual keyword ideas by clicking this tab here. Now, as you can see here, this is the main keyword search term. We can see the average monthly searches are about 1,000. The competition, however, is quite high. The suggested bid are basically the Google AdWords. So if you're using this for Google AdWords, great. It tells you exactly how much a company is willing to bid for somebody just to click once. So for every click, average is about $2 So that's a good amount for a click. So we see other keywords, for example, low fat, low cholesterol diet plan, 70 average monthly searches, but it's a high competition. So even though it is low, that tells us that possibly there is a buying market that is willing to spend more money. Now, let's say, for example, that I want to do some keyword filters and filter so that I only get low and medium competition in terms of keyword phrases. So as you can see, we are able to see variations of the keywords in terms of the medium competition. And we can also see how much people are searching in Google and the suggested bid. And anytime you see a suggested bid, that tells you that if there are people that are willing to advertise in this specific market, there are people who are buying these types of products, which means that you could easily move in and sell the products that you're going to sell surrounding specific keyword terms. So that gives you a better idea that if you move into this market, you'll be able to more likely find people who want to buy your product. So that's a good sign. The last site I want to talk about in terms of market and competitor type research is clickbank.com. Clickbank.com is basically a marketplace that sells and allows people and sellers to sell digital products. But you can actually get a lot of data in terms of what's selling and what's not at clickbank.com. So if you go here, you are going to need to create an account. But once you create an account, you'll be able to log in, and at the very top, you click on Marketplace, and you'll get this page. Let's say, for example, that we're going to stick with the low cholesterol type keyword. And we're just going to say low cholesterol diet and do a search. And looking through here, we can actually see the specific digital products, and all of these are digital products. Basically what that means is that when somebody buys a product, it's all digital, it's all ebooks, videos, and basically can be delivered through the web. So these are not actually physical products. But it's great because it gives you an idea of if you want to create a digital product, if it's selling or not. So as we can see here, you can see the average sale. This means that they are giving people 50% commissions if you sell it, and you sell it, people buy it through your affiliate link. How much are you getting? The gravity here also is a good determining factor of how many people are buying. But we can see here natural secrets for high cholesterol. The gravity is 5.03. That's actually fairly good. And you can see the price points of what people are selling it at, so you kind of have an idea of who your competitors are, what they're selling it at, or possibly who your potential joint venture partners could be. So these people, you may have a different product that's related to low cholesterol that you could have, approach these people to sell it and things like that. So you can use this however you wish, but just get an idea of the price points, how much is selling, things like that. So ClickBank is another great site to use for that purpose. Now, moving right along, let's talk about product research. When it comes time for you to want to create a product, you want to make sure that you create a product that people actually want. So let's say, for example, you're ready, you've done your market competition research, and you know you want to move into this market. Now, there are several free sites that you can use to get customer feedback, to know exactly what the complaints are, what they're looking for, what their desires and needs are, and things like that. So Amazon.com is a great place to go. And we can simply type in low cholesterol. And you'll notice that Amazon, as you type the keyword, it tells you what other keywords are available. For example, we can see low cholesterol cookbook is located in the books Kindle store and books trade in. Now, if we click on low cholesterol diet plan and stick to what we've been searching, you can see that different books here, and it gives you related searches. So we saw that the cookbook seems to be getting more searches. So we got 453 types of products that are being sold under the specific keyword. Or on the other hand, this here was 192. Now, in terms of product research, what you want to do is specifically find a product that may relate to something that you want to create. So let's say, for example, that I'm looking to specifically create a book or a DVD on a specific diet plan. So we can see the DASH diet action plan. It's mainly weight loss. Okay, so cholesterol down. So let's click on the one that seems to be getting the majority of the good reviews. So if we click on this here, the stars, my goal here is to read through the reviews, specifically the good reviews, and then of course the negative reviews. Because the negative reviews, if you can find a pattern and a consistent pattern of people saying the exact same thing, specifically not necessarily about the product in terms of readability and things like that, but in terms of content. If you can figure out something that is missing, then guess what? You can fulfill that by creating a product around something that is missing, because people are looking for that specific something, that content that is missing. You've got that content, great. You've put it in front of the buyer market and they now want it. So now you get the idea of that customer reviews are key. Customer reviews tell you exactly what people want, what people are frustrated with, and what they're willing to buy, what they expected. Now they didn't find it, they're going to go around and search for other types of products that can fulfill that specific need. And then of course, going back, I'd advise you to look at other specific products, look at the reviews, like this one here, go here, look for the 1, 2, 3, 4 stars, look at the 5 stars, see what's good, but also see what's missing. So that's a great way to do some research on Amazon. Twitter.com is another great site to use. If you go up there, click the search, paste in your keyword phrase, you will be able to see the types of responses, what people are talking about, different articles, different suggestions that people might have in relation to a low cholesterol diet plan. So you'll be able to see the chatter that people have. Another great way to figure out if there is another buying market in terms of interaction and things like that is by going to Facebook. Go at the top here, just simply type in low cholesterol diet plan, do a search, and see what we get. And it'll actually show you the different pages, how many people have liked each page. And what I advise you to do is simply go through here and figure out how many people are actually interacting with the content that is being displayed, because that's a good indication of how involved and rabid the buyer market in that specific area can be. Another site, of course, is Pinterest. So you can create a Pinterest account, enter that keyword, and see what people are posting in terms of Pinterest. And of course, last but not least, you can go to google.com and type in the keyword phrase plus forum. Go and find forums that are talking specifically about that keyword phrase that you're looking for. See what kind of complaints they have, what they are interested in, and things like that. And that'll give you a good idea of how to create a good product that people actually want to buy. If you do that, that's low-hanging fruit. You simply stick that product in front of them, and it'll be easier to sell that way. So I hope you've learned a lot, and you've learned a lot about knowing your target audience, knowing your buyer market, so that now you can know how to use these free resources to go out, get the vital information that you need to maximize your income.